Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. And if this is your first time seeing me, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Tara. I'm sort of branching into podcasts and interviews now, and like I've just sparked this passion for it recently. And one of my friends and classmates in my doctoral program, she came to mind one day as like the perfect person to interview or get started off on just like talking about how she grew up, life topics. I don't know, any advice for someone that's in their 20s or um different things that I think Karla could help with or kind of speak some wisdom to. So Karla, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tara. Appreciate it. This is an honor to be on your podcast. It really is.
Yeah, and I know that you're so busy, and especially with what was recently transpiring, I'm sure you're super busy more than normal now.
Yes, yes.
We can
Running
get into
four
that.
branches for our discipline is a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, Karla is also an occupational therapist like me, and she's currently managing four different branches for this company, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Texas. And go big or go home, I guess, here in Texas.
Yeah. It seems like that as well. But I also am a adjunct professor at the community college, and I teach the pediatric course. So the one of the biggest reasons why attending Baylor University with you, Tara, is to start a few clinics up in pediatrics. It's always been a passion. I got away from it because I had my own little girl, and she had like severe ADHD, and I really wanted to make sure that my home foundation is strong before I go out there and help other children and parents. So, and having that doctoral designation, it really does get you through the door. It shows you're really a master in your profession, and it does elevate you for, business and professionals that seek your advice as well, knowledge.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And also, if you're doing like, if you have your own company or you're doing one-to-one therapy under your own license, that can help boost your rates or boost your name getting out there, having the doctor in front of it, which is
Oh
very
yeah,
exciting. So we're a few months away, I guess. What are we, 6 months away at this point,
six
actually?
months ago. Yeah.
So, and that's gonna fly. June is already flying. May flew by. June is halfway done now. And I'm sure it's very hot. What's the temperature right now in Texas?
I think it's 98 degrees, and this is a cool day. So, yeah.
It was 91 yesterday, and everyone was having a fit. So
I'm like, what? That's
today it
nice and
actually
cool.
dropped a bit. Today it's actually nice. It's like 70, 75. Perfect. Like I love.
Perfect weather.
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
So why don't you tell me and whoever's going to be listening a little bit about how you grew up, where you were born, what led
Okay.
you down the path that is now your life, and uh, just you can just start off wherever you want, actually.
Okay. So I was born in South Korea by a American father and a Korean native. And it was back in the 70s. I know, well, back in the 70s. And I was a product of being Korean and American, and I was actually born on Korean soil, which technically was on base, so it's American soil. My parents, they didn't get along pretty well. I think it was a cultural thing, but I ended up kind of going between both of them. I don't think my mother was I don't think she was really into children, and my dad was young, so I got kind of pushed to my American grandmother, and I didn't really have a lot of influence from my mother or my father, and then my American grandmother, she got upset that her son was not taking responsibility for her granddaughter, me, and so he ended up taking me to Belgium, so I got to experience Europe. He got married again, and I had two stepsisters and a half sister along the way. And I was a very quiet child. I love reading. I love arts. I love crafts. I was very much an introvert. Whereas my stepmother, who raised us, was an extrovert, very boisterous, very outgoing, two different personalities completely. And we just clashed. So I didn't get along with my stepmother. And at that time, my mother decided not to be part of my life. She decided that she wanted to go off and be on her own. My dad wasn't too much in my life. He was there, but he wasn't present. He was military, always working. But so I was with my stepmother and my two step siblings and my half sister. It was not good for me. I was a reminder of a previous marriage, and I was treated like a stepchild. I mean, you've heard the Cinderella.
I was
So
actually just
yeah,
thinking
that's what
about that.
happened.
That immediately came to mind. I was like, kind of reminds me of Cinderella, you saying that you had step siblings and then a half sister on the way and then a stepmother that you didn't
Mhm.
like or you clashed with.
Mm-mm. Right. And I wanted a mother. I really truly wanted the love of a mother, and I was just really I was this little girl that just wanted siblings. I wanted to have a family. I felt alone even as an only child. So I was embracing them, but they didn't embrace me.
Hmm.
My stepmother saw me as I think she had issues of her own. She was not she was very outgoing, but deep down inside, I think she had like a lack of confidence in herself. And so she didn't go to college till much, much later in her life. And I think at that point she became more satisfied with herself. She may have, like I said, there's a resentment between my mother and her. But my mother came back in my life at 10 years old, and I was scared of her. And I told her, please go away. I wanted a family. I was established, even though it was the best situation. I was very established with my dad and his wife and my siblings. When I became older, it was really hard. You know how people have they go to parties and they go to prom and they have all kinds of really good, cool things to do in high school. I never got to do that. I was kind of on restriction all the time. I was a very good girl, I think so. My stepsisters were more deviant than I would have been. So I decided through a teacher, a science teacher who used to be a police officer, he noticed the difference in my home life. In occupational therapy and even in psychology, they say that you could be in the same environment but get treated much different. So your outcomes on
Yeah.
your personalities, behaviors could be totally different, even though you're in the same household. Um, so by that being said, I had a science teacher who was a former police officer, and he said, "Listen, I see what's going on at home. This is the late 80s, early 90s. This is where children should be seen and not heard. So even if I went to sleep, they would dismiss it, and that has happened before. And so he said, what you need to do is you need to get into the workforce. And I said, well, how would I do that? He's make money. We'll give you skills and you can leave your house. And I
Hmm.
said, okay, well, I wonder how to do that. So he said, there's a co-op program at the high school where you can earn credit and work experience and money. And I thought, that's great. So I can't say my real first job was, my first job was working at Hawaiian Shaved Ice. And then I started working at the airport Hilton at 16. And then at 17, I had a boyfriend who was 18 years old and already in college. He co-signed for me for a lease on a studio apartment. So I was 17 years old living in a studio apartment away from my family.
Okay.
And I never looked back. But Tara, it was a very hard life. I tried to go to college so many times, but food, rent, it you got to pay for your basics. So I went through my classes like I didn't care what grades I got, I just got grades. And then I realized later on in life, if I wanted to be in the occupational therapy field, I had to have good grades. And I found out about occupational therapy when I volunteered at William Belmont Army Medical Center during the first Gulf War. And I was playing around in the elevators as a Red Cross volunteer. I was just going up and down those elevators, just pressing buttons, trying to find out where things are at in this hospital. And I came across the rehab ward, and I would go there to banter every week with the soldiers that would come back from the Gulf War, and some of them had a reconstruction to their hands and their shoulders and so forth. And one day, I had a doctor in the hallway who told me to come with her now. And I thought I was in trouble and I was going to run, right? I was going to run. And we went into the rehab ward, and I sat down and I saw one of the soldiers I was bantering with. And he had his shoulders and his arm, they were reconstructed. And his goal was to feed his little baby girl. They just had a baby and he couldn't feed her. And that was his goal. His goal was to get her to be fed by him without dropping her.
Mm.
So what ended up happening was I'm sorry about my video. What ended up happening was,
Okay.
I know it's going in and out. Uh, she he got his motor coordination back a little more so than it was before, and he fed his baby girl, and everyone started to cry. And I didn't know the ramifications or the implications, to say, of him going through rehab, because here I am sitting at the table with him week after week, just bantering with him, saying, "Oh, if I can do it, you can do it. I know you can do this. You're just, no, you're not trying." I had no idea at 16 the deficit he had. I just thought he was just kidding around because it didn't look like anything was abnormal about his hands or his shoulder.
Mm.
But the doctor turned to me, and everyone's, teary-eyed, and she said, "Karla, bantering isn't always going to work." I had no idea what that meant until much later.
Mhm.
Um, and along the way, I became more aware of people's deficits and disabilities and developmental delays, and became more altruistic about it
Right.
because I realized how it impacted so many people on a level that I couldn't understand. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow. So, stepping a bit back into your history, one thing that I'm curious about is your relationships to your sisters. And if you have any relationships with them to this day, how did they treat you? Were any of them nice? Did they feel like you were a part of their family, etc.?
That's a good question. So, in the beginning, it was really cool. I had sisters. Oh, yes, it was awesome, right? I wasn't so lonely in Belgium. But there was a play on, my stepmother would put her children first, and you could see the dynamics where I was put to the side. I
Mm-hmm.
even had pictures when I went to counseling that showed them in pictures together, and I was onto the side near a tree by myself. Um, as we got older, more the animosity between all of us arose. And I say animosity meaning that I was jealous that they had a mother, but they didn't like me because I was the oddball out. Um, my half sister wasn't, she was about 6, 7 years my junior, so she couldn't really participate. She was very young. To this day, my two stepsisters always got in trouble. My oldest stepsister has developmental delay with autism and some mental, she's just not up to par mentally. Um, she tried raising her kids, but her kids resented her because they felt that she embarrassed them. But to this day, my stepsisters resent me because in when I graduated from high school in 1993, I had to press charges against my dad and my stepmother for assaulting me. And that came about when my stepsister started saying some things what wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
I was told by her that I had to leave the house, and I said, "Okay, well, I will leave the house." And my dad walked through the door. He assaulted me along with my stepmother. Um, my stepsister's dad was in town, so he thought this was really funny. So it was just all just I felt like it was planned. And I had filed charges. And because I filed charges, and I dropped them later on because I didn't want to,
Drag it
I just
out.
didn't want all this. Yeah, I was an adult. I wasn't going to be at home anymore. It was, and to this day, as even of yesterday, um, there's still resentment. Yeah.
So,
So there's still resentment on that.
is your father still alive?
He's still alive. He's in Arizona and his wife passed away 2 years ago, and he now resides with my stepsister. She's a nurse. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm assuming that was that kind of like a real breaking point for you and your dad? Like once he put his hands on you and the stepmom and was just kind of making a show of you in front of your stepsisters, was that when you were kind of like, okay, like this isn't the dad I thought I had? Or did you have a relationship
Well,
after?
so at 6 years old, every little girl sees their dad as their hero. And at 6 years old, my stepmother and my dad got married. Again, I was put to the side, and my stepmother would antagonize my dad, and she would say all kinds of bad things about me. And then he would just get his belt out and start just hitting wherever he could, all over me. He even came to a point where he even did all the way up to 17 years of age.
Wow.
And she would just antagonize, and she loved it. I don't even have to be in the home. Remember, I was telling you I was working at the Hilton?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would get in trouble for stealing food out of the refrigerator, which was locked, which changed for me. Everyone else had the key except me. I could be working at the Hilton the whole day, and there could be a meal missing in there, and I would get in trouble for it. It didn't matter. I was just always in trouble for something, even though I existed. It was pretty bad. It was really bad. Um, but I learned a resiliency, and that's one of the things you teach in occupational therapy is resiliency. Set goals. Set goals. I mean, you could be floundering, you could be sitting there and just, poor me. Set goals. So you're not sitting there saying, poor me. You could be in a bad situation and you can go along with it. You could be into drugs, you could be in prostitution, you could be a statistic. Setting those goals and saying, I want to be this because no one else defines me except me. I'm going to be better than this. They're teaching me what I don't want to be. And that's how I got past all the abuse. And I reported this abuse. And like I said, back in the late 80s and early 90s, they didn't want to hear this from kids. Kids should be seen and not heard. And that's the way it was. Go outside, stay outside. If you want to stay inside, you got to do chores. You're basically dismissed. Raising yourself, latchkey kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one of my graduate research papers was on child abuse and prevention. And one of the things they did talk about was resiliency. And a lot of people don't have resiliency. They may not have a person to guide them. But I knew deep down inside, this is not what I want to be. I don't want to be like my stepmother. I don't want to be passive like my dad, being codependent. I don't want to be like my stepsisters who are catty, because even today, right now, and they're over the age of 40, they hate themselves. They hate themselves. Their lives are not, they're not up to par where someone should be at. They're very angry people. Um,
This feels
even
like
though my,
a
Hmm?
generational, this almost feels like this was a generational curse that you broke free of because how is it that everyone, like it's what I'm hearing is so many people in your family have these really, really toxic traits and it's like they're taking it out on the only person in the room that kind of maybe was like a light or like showed happiness when they felt there was no reason to be happy or joyful, especially as a child who's not joyful as a child. But it's just interesting to me that even your biological mom, your stepmom, well, more so like your family, your dad, your sisters, and I'm sure maybe even grandparents grandparents on your dad's side or something had like this toxic like energy about them and it just kind of just kept being passed on through
yes.
kids and it just that's what it sounds like to me.
I agree with you totally. My dad grew up without a father. He had three other brothers, and back in the 50s, there was no welfare, there was no social services. My grandma had to raise four boys on her own, and she was married to this man, my grandfather, for 13 years, and he abandoned them. So he didn't have a father figure in his life. So you would think that my dad would be more, this is my little girl, you know? And basically, my stepmother was, I think she had issues also. Yeah, she did have issues, actually, I found out recently. Um, she had issues with her parents too. They didn't give her any attention. So I thought, well, maybe because she was this way because she didn't have attention growing up as a little girl. So she had to have attention from my dad and push me to the side. But as you know, as far as going beyond the child abuse, for anyone that's out there, you know, there's support, there's help, there's help. I don't think I would have been in this field if I hadn't
Me
volunteered, if I
too.
hadn't been aware or privy to it. No one knows what occupational therapy, I can't say no one, but majority of people are like, what's occupational therapy? And occupational therapy encompasses mental health as well and physical rehabilitation. So it encompasses both sides. So you may have a person that's like, I can't do something, I just can't. And they're just stuck, mentally just stuck. This is where OT comes in and said, I am your facilitator. Let's get this going. So I felt that this field aligned pretty well with my life. And I love hands on and I love the mental health aspect of it. There have been so many children I've helped along the way who was in the almost same situation as me, and I feel like maybe this was my calling, but it took me many moons to get to this point to be an occupational therapist. And I started as a CNA, a tech, a certified occupational therapy assistant, an OT, and now I'll be a doctor of OT. So this was the pathway that was chosen for me. They always say that God puts those hard paths in front of you because he has a plan for you. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I want that anymore. I'm good, you know?
I can
You know,
definitely see that it was your calling. I think that in order to understand something and treat it or help someone take their next step towards having a full life or kind of dropping the weight of things that's happened to them as a child or through their teen years or even as an adult, you have to kind of understand what it's like personally. And
right.
you definitely do. And in a more severe way than most people walking down the street have it. But at the same time, there's always that saying that's like someone always has it worse than you. And thinking of you, I can only imagine how many kids have it worse that are currently around today that need that help. And I wonder if there are OTs out there. And honestly, I apply this to myself because I told my supervisor, I'm like, listen, I would like to work part-time in a high school because I just feel like you can do different types of things in OT with older students and you really get to use that mental health component. Um, but just imagine all the kids or teenagers out there that have gone through something worse, but you would never know because they're kind of stuck in a box or not, allowed to talk about what's going on or um they just feel like they can't talk to anyone and they just act like maybe everything's normal when they go to school. And it's crazy because by looking at you, I wouldn't know any of this. And I'm sure if I had been your age and around you and we weren't friends and we just walked by the hallway, I would be like, oh, that's just Karla, like normal, regular life. But really, so much was going on.
So much is going on, Tara. I mean, think about high school life, how everyone's got they dress cool, they've got, phones or cars and things like that. I didn't have that. I had holes in my clothes.
Hmm.
I had friends. I thought I had friends. I had friends that were friends in the beginning, but then when they realized I wasn't cool and I was just like, I couldn't help it. I mean, I tried. That's why I got a job and I started working more. So I didn't really get that socialization component for being a high schooler. I was more with adults because I'd worked with adults. And I thank the Airport Hilton for hiring me on as a co-op student. So I learned so much and had so many skills in the beginning before I graduated high school that I was able to get a better job post high school right away and go to college. But it was a balancing act, really, you know.
I
Um,
wonder, I wonder just because you brought it up, like kind of how he dressed in school. Um, just from what you said about the clothes having holes in them, what are some warning signs you think that something like to look out for that something's going on with a child or a high schooler, like a young adult? What is some things that you haven't experienced it would immediately recognize it in someone else?
Well, besides the way they dress, and then you look at their siblings, and you look at their
Okay.
siblings like this can't be right. You're like you dress like you're from the garbage, and they dress like they've got brand new clothes on. That's the thing. Um, Not eating lunch. I wasn't given lunch money.
Okay.
I wasn't given book supplies. I got bullied to the point where I just started just I started going more into like the band and going more into like things that I could superficially be a part of. So people wouldn't think things were going on. I wasn't getting in depth. I couldn't because my family wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't help me out financially to get supplies or uniforms for school. But you could see my interests, but I couldn't take a full, what do you call it? Um, Dive into, the curriculum like I wanted to.
Hmm.
Another thing is extreme amounts of um, low self-esteem when it shouldn't be low self-esteem. You're getting really good grades, you're proud of yourself, but you just there's no one to celebrate with. You know, Award ceremony comes and you avoid it, because there's no one
Wow.
there to come. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It was sad. It was sad being alone in this world. And I didn't even tell you about my mother. My mother, I
Oh, that's a
felt,
whole
used my
different.
dad first. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, no, no, keep going. I because we've talked outside of this, I know a
Yeah.
little bit about her, so I'm like, oh, she's just
Yeah.
another like I don't want to say anything mean
Yes.
about her.
Yes. My mother's been married 5 times. She is a multimillionaire. I'm her only child, biological child. I do not inherit anything. She does not like me because I'm American, even though I was raised by my dad, even though she exchanged me for a car. She told the judge she didn't want child support. She just wants the car. And at 10 years old, she wanted to get me at 10. And it was basically for financial gain because she wasn't doing so well financially.
Hmm.
And then I went to her when I was 21 and to start that relationship with my mother. And I said, Mom, I took the MCAT pretest and I did really good. I want to be a neurosurgeon. I want to be a doctor. And she laughed at me and laughed at me. Says, No, you're a girl. Your cousin's going to be a doctor. Now, she sponsored my uncle with his son and my aunt to the United States, sponsored them, and I was living with my dad. And I found out later on that 2 years ago, when I saw some cashier receipts, some cashier check receipts, that she was paying my cousin's medical degree to be a sports medicine physician. So he got to be a physician that
Say that he
I
didn't
wanted to
even
be a
want that
physician.
job, that something happened, he just dropped out or something.
He didn't want it, but then eventually he was all in for it. And here I am. I'm like, I really want to go to med school. And when you go to med school, they interview you. Your whole family's being interviewed. They want to make sure that you're getting support at home because they take that tuition money, all of it, because they know how much you're going to make. But you also have to have some funds to live off of. So you got to make sure, they, the school, that you got a good support system. And my mother was giving my cousin 15,000 a semester on top of 15,000 what his dad was giving him. Hmm. So he was banking on it and just living a good life. He had a maid, he had his car, he had people that would, cook for him, everything. But I wasn't allowed to be a doctor. And it was hard. I mean, it's really hard to go to med school, without family support or any type of support when you have to work. It's really hard. So I chose the field of occupational therapy because it kept on coming up. And occupational therapy works on the finer motor, right? The finer muscles. And I thought, well, that's what neurologist does. They work on the finer parts of the body, right?
I love the neurology aspect of OT so
Hmm.
much. Well, just bouncing off of that, I told you about the second job I have, and it's very
Yeah.
um physical disabilities based and a little bit of neurotoss in there, and I feel like I'm just like reabsorbing all this info I learned. Honestly love that aspect of OT so much. But continue with your cousin.
So he got to go to med school and I didn't, which was unfair, I felt. And to this day, my mother, she doesn't even know what occupational therapy does, nor will they tell her what what it is. And she thinks an occupational therapist is a massage therapist.
Oh, I remember. I
It
know
it
this.
may raunchier form a prostitute. So she brought that up and said, yeah, we were talking about you and it's that's what you do. I was like, that's not what I do. That's not what I do. So, I've got two parents that just, I'm just it's sad. But I do have a 9-year-old daughter and she's very proud of me. And she wants to be a superhero and she knows what occupational therapists do because she's promoting it throughout her whole school for a
Oh, I
9-year-old.
love that.
And she says occupational therapists are superheroes. And she keeps telling me they're superheroes. I'm telling you, they're superheroes. Isn't that amazing to
That,
change the next generation?
and that's kind of like, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm just gonna assume she's like the light at the end of your tunnel.
She is.
That she kind of
Absolutely.
is like the flower that kind of grew out of all this craziness, this like a dry, barren land kind of thing, and that one flower just grows up. I feel like that's your daughter because, and in a way, that probably, she probably continues to save you from that past, like the haunting of that past every day, because she's what you look forward to in the future.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a quote that was on my Facebook by the movie Milan. It says, "The flower that blooms in adversity is the most rarest and beautiful of all." Imagine that. Think about that,
Yeah.
right? The flower. But she's my guiding light. So she's my future. And I think positive about my future. You can't think things negatively because you start thinking negatively, things negatively are going to happen, Think positive. Positive. Positive is the future. And what you and I do, Tara, is we give people, hope for their future, for their recovery. And, we all go through as therapists some type of, setback. And we can relate those setbacks to the people we work with also and say, hey, I went through this. Let me show you what I did. Let me show you and that's that we could be just out there and being that person seeing light as well. That one person that made a difference. Multiple times I've heard that from patients like, you know what, if I hadn't met you, I don't know if I could have done this. And as occupational therapists, I think that we have an obligation to continue to promote positiveness in this world because there's a lot of negativity.
I was thinking about this the other day, how like growing up, or like the first year of college, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a nurse. Like I want to be a nurse. Like the friends I had at the time wanted to be nurses, so I was surrounded by that. It was a big college that I went to. And I ended up obviously not doing that route, but I always had this idea that nurses were like the ultimate healers because they're seeing the patients more than the doctors, and that they're giving them medicine, and they're, changing their sheets, or maybe changing their clothes even. But really, the more I think about it, yes, nurses are amazing. They're amazing. If you're a hospital nurse, like, my greatest appreciation to you. But I also feel like now that I'm an occupational therapist, I really see how OTs are more so the healers, more so than nurses, because a lot of times I like they're kind of just giving you your medicine and they leave you at that. Or they're making sure you're not dying, basically. That's their job, is to make sure you're alive, you're well, you have good vitals, you got your medicine at time, you rotated in your bed every 2 hours or whatever. But I feel like, and sometimes it could be like disgruntling, or that they could just treat it as like just that, no like real patient care. But as OTs, you really see your patients on a weekly basis, that you know them. They give you gifts, like so many gifts. I get so many gifts from parents, from like people. And it's like, well, someone gives you a gift when they appreciate you. And so that means that they're really valuing the time they're spending with you, and they're feeling like it's healing them. not just from what you're doing to them with their like treatments and activities and your insight, but also in like the way that you go about it, how you smile or like talk to them and stuff like that. I feel like people don't realize that going into OT, like you're actually stepping into a real, very specific kind of role that you have to be very empathetic for, or else you're just not going to enjoy it and it's not going to be for you.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Um, Talking about now, I do home health, so I do a little bit of nursing, physical therapy, social working,
Yeah.
everything in between. So I get a really good aspect of the healthcare system, even from reimbursement rates and political um, backbone of our healthcare system.
Mhm.
And for OTs, we can be certified in wound care. We do functional mobility and balance. We do cognition training and memory. We also do a little bit of resource findings and environmental safety. So we do a little bit of everything. So we're
You
like
wear multiple hats. It
we're a lot of hats, a lot of hats. And you know what? Every day is an adventure, every day.
really is. And you know what
So
else? I'm the type of person that there are people that like to be an expert, absolute master of one thing, and they hone in on that. And then there are people more like me that enjoy learning about different things and developing proficiency in different areas, but not expecting to be like the master of it all. But I know what I'm doing in those areas to the degree that I should as an adult, as an OT, as someone working across different populations. Like it actually builds your sense of your world, like your world view really expands and your knowledge. Like probably I hope to grow up to be one of the wisest people that I know when I get older. But that's what it feels like it's heading in, just because we're like learning so much about the healthcare world, different things about neurology, different treatment studies come out every week, every year that can affect what we do, can affect our direction. Um, and it's just awesome. It really is awesome.
I was on a plane 3 weeks ago to Las Vegas, and they asked if there's any healthcare workers on board. And I thought, well, maybe they're going to give me a free drink. No,
One was having an
they need me
attack.
to come. Yeah, yeah, someone was having a heart attack, and I assessed them, and I said, listen, I'm more worried about um, embolism, blood clots right now, since he's got heart condition. They put him on oxygen. I told them what they needed to do, keep him alive. I asked for if anyone had 81, medication, 81 milligrams of aspirin because you want to dilute their blood, thin them out. And everything worked out well. And then EMS waited for him at the end. And that's what OTs do. We don't just sit there. We just don't work on just the physical aspect. We also look at the internal aspect, blood pressure, vitals, just like the nurses do as well.
Can you walk me
Um,
through that situation? Like how did walk me through what when it started, what you saw, like what was presented to you and what your quick thinking was.
so what happened was he was really old, elderly. He was from China. So he had some people with him that were family related, but they also didn't understand the medical aspect. And he had presented them with a small little vial of some powder, which he said was his heart medication. I thought, that's Eastern medicine, the holistic medicine. I thought,
Oh, Chinese medicine.
right. And so I had to communicate with him, through cues, physical tactile input. I tried to get the family to get involved as well. They couldn't understand him as well. And I think that they were picking him up and taking him back to China. And so I assessed his vitals. They had a stethoscope, a blood pressure cuff. I did his radial pulse rate, and I assessed his legs to see if there was any blood clots. I assessed his lungs, his vision, to see, if it was, he was able to dilate. Um, and I couldn't go anything beyond that, like have him talk to me because, he spoke Chinese. I don't speak Mandarin Chinese. But I did everything, and he was trying to lay down. I said, you're not laying down. We got the oxygen on him. And I always carry a CPR um, mask with me on my keychain. So if something happened, I could do CPR on him. Yeah.
Wow, that was very thorough. That was
Yeah.
emergency level room ease and calm.
And
Um,
that's what we do as OTs. We go in there, we do the same thing as nursing as far as the vitals, and we have to know our conditions. We have to know um, our body functions, what condition a person has, and what to look for as well. So this isn't one of those hokey pokey degrees where you're like, oh, I'm just going to shower them. No, it's more than that. It's more than just showering. It's keeping their body at homeostasis while we're showering, right? So,
yeah, I mean, who knows what the future is going to be for OTs? Like, you might see us in an emergency room. Who really knows?
oh
Uh,
yes.
I know that I've done assessments in the emergency room when I was at Coney Island Hospital, now called South Brooklyn Hospital. And they did call the OTs down there to go do an evaluation, which I was like, okay, great. Like, you're including us in pretty much every aspect of the hospital. It's not just the ICU or the NICU or the post-surgery wings. Like, I like how, we really fit in everyone. We can make those snap judgments and those decisions when someone's life depends on it, which is really cool. Um, but yeah, what is something that you would say to someone who was in their 20s and maybe they were coming out of like a tough situation, or they're like low on motivation in life? What would you tell someone to convince them to kind of like get up, get back up, and put effort into something, and making their life better for themselves? Because we all have that power to do that, even if it's on a really small level, we still have that.
Right. I would, for me, I think education is paramount. I think education is very important for anything. Like even for us women, when we're in these bad situations, maybe bad relationship, and we're under a person's thumb financially, we're able to get ourselves up and say, I got an education, I got a degree, I can get a job. And I think it's important that getting an education, and I say you don't have to get an education per se to have a trade. I'm just saying get an education to inform yourself of what's out there worldly. You may find, taking a career assessment test at a college or tech school that you want to go into this field, or you know what, you want to go on your own, you want to start your own business. It is really good to know who you are by taking these little assessments at the colleges. Um, I've had some people who were on welfare. I can't do college, da 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 da. They took an assessment and they're like, well, I am good at that. And then they had a pathway for themselves. So I think education is very, very good to have. Educate yourself about the world, educate yourself about a career. And you can always find resources too when you go to the college or tech schools. They're always there to help you financially, um, and for housing, for food, and so forth. And it's not embarrassing because everyone goes there. No one is going to know your business. They're going to be like, well, she's here for college, or she's here to take a career assessment test. And I think that's the next step. So I don't want people thinking that, you know, I got to go to college to get out of the situation. No, just get an assessment on how you are, your abilities. It's just good to know who you are, what you're good at. Sometimes when you're in those situations, you don't know how good you are because you've been torn down so much, you know? Um, I say stay the course. Stay the course, focus on you. You may be going into those relationships with so much baggage from your family, and that baggage is going to pour out in your relationships. So knowing who you are, what you want in life, what kind of partner you want in life is very important, and not settling, because bad marriages can take you out for years,
I'm gonna
financially too.
I'm gonna circle back to that in a second, but I just wanted to say that I can totally see you in the future. I know you wanted to start your own company that's just Karla's, and whoever, whatever other OT or other specialist you want to work with as well, whatever that ends up being in the future. But I know you want to have your own business,
Yes.
your own practice that like brick and mortar, like of actual physical building that people can come in and get therapy in, right? I can totally thinking of that. I could totally see you having some sort of mentorship program, or offering like counseling in a sense to kids or like teenagers or college students. So don't forget that I said that because when the time comes, I think that would make such a difference, especially like for a local high school or something, and they have like you can connect with the departments there and see like anyone who's in the nursing or healthcare program, they can come have a day with me, or I can come to the school myself and kind of talk about what I do for work and tell them any crazy stories I have or things that have been really awesome about my job, stuff like that. Or like a part-time work credit where they could get credit for coming and helping you at your business. I feel like that would be really cool. And like you can imagine maybe someone that was just like you growing up comes in and walks in and meets you. Like if you could meet your teenage self where you are now, it would be like, oh my gosh, perfect. I have all the tools now to help you that you didn't have. And then going back to what you said about relationships, what is like your number one relationship advice? What is something that you feel like you would tell your daughter when the time comes? I know she's only 9, but like or like a sibling that you were close to. I know you're not close to your sisters, but what's your like number one?
Love yourself no matter who loves you. You got to love yourself first.
Mhm.
Don't seek love somewhere else. Don't seek validation from someone else. You're the only person that matters is yourself. We have a tendency to put a lot of emphasis and a lot of credibility and a lot of responsibility on people that we think love us, and we have this false sense of being loved. Um, love yourself unconditionally because all you got is you. Focus on you. We have a tendency to put ourselves into other people, and the other people will disappoint us. I mean, I've been in some relationships where they they presented a really good position. I love you. I'll take care of you. Da da da. And your past. Da da da. No, no. We have to love ourselves first before we can have someone else love us. So yes, that's what I would say. Love ourselves first.
And you know what? I
Yeah.
mean, of course, that is like the number one thing. And you hear a lot of people say that, but really the effects of it can be really damaging if you don't. It can lead you to like chasing people or, just trying to like beg someone to kind of give you the attention you want. And I feel like th
Yeah.
those habits will go away if you like you said, kind of set goals for yourself. I feel like goals build self-confidence, structure builds self-confidence, builds like value. Like, oh, you can't waste my time right now because I have a 5 p.m. this or a 6 p.m. that. I really don't have the time to go back and forth with you about this. And then everything kind of will just like align for you because you'll only end up by your own standard dating people that are very structured with their time or very respectful of things that they say they're going to do. Um, so yeah, I mean, any oh, the most recent thing going on. Is there anything you want to say about that? Or is this a legal matter now that can't be talked about?
To be continued. I think the individual we're talking about needs love in her life. She needs love herself. So, something going on with this person. But I will tell you about that later on, Miss Tara, on another podcast.
Oh yeah, we'll have to wait until that unravels because right now it's not
Yes.
fully done.
True. So I started 2 days ago. Yeah, yeah. Well, Miss Tara, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. This has been very insightful for me to even talk about this, to be more aware of my position as well. Because it's always good to hear yourself talk and say, hey, you know what? That's true. Or that's not true.
Really
Or,
good.
hey, I do much better than that. Yeah.
When I
Tara,
upload
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. When I upload this, you can watch it back and kind of like encourage yourself. But yeah, this is awesome. This is like a great way to start off my interviewing. Hopefully, this continues where I'm able to continue like just bringing people on and discussing things and really just like gaining something new and spark like a spark of interest in my own brain of new things and new ideas and advice. But yeah, like this was really awesome.
You're creating an encyclopedia of people's lives that they don't want to write down in books like me. I don't want to write a book. Okay. I don't have time for that. But it's really good to have someone have an interest in who you are. This kind of like our profiles, occupational therapy profiles. Like, who are you? Tell me a little
Yeah.
about yourself so I can tell the doctor. That's really good. And when I work with older persons, I always say, hey, tell me about you. You're an encyclopedia, okay? And I want that information. I want to know about you. And they love that. They're like, you're going to listen to me? Like me, little old me. And then they have a whole story about stuff, about their lives. And I'm thinking, I've learned so much from them. They don't even know. They don't even know. Yeah. Well,
Really?
Miss Tara, thank you so much. I've got to get going, and I appreciate your podcast. It's amazing, and I do listen to all your social media.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll let you go now and we'll definitely follow this up at some point.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Okay, guys. So that was my interview with Miss Karla. I hope you guys liked it. And I hope you stayed till this point where we're just wrapped up that conversation. But there were points when she was speaking that I mean, I'm a very emotional person, but there were times when I wanted to almost tear up because of what she said and things that I know that she went through. And that's not even really the half of it. She covered a really basic map of what her life was like and how she is where she is now, which is massively successful by anyone's standards because of what she's overcome. And I think it shows that success can be defined by what you come from, not necessarily what you have. You don't have to be a multimillionaire to be successful. You could be successful by just having a happy, healthy life, having relationships with people, having a good job, being consistent, being a good worker, being reliable, um, having family, taking care of your family. That is rich in itself. And that is actually comparable to being a billionaire to me when it comes from someone who didn't even have a loving home, didn't have a parent that really loved them, not even one, you know. And this happened to be really Karla's experience. If you look, if you play it back, I know her dad kind of sounded, compared to her mom, her dad even sounded like the better parent, even though he was not treating her well. He was abusing the child growing up or putting hands on the child um, when she was young. Like, it's just crazy to me how you can go from something like that and overcome it and have a career, be reliable, be kind, still want to show up for people, have a child, show up for your child. Um, so I just think people's lives are like the best. Uh, I guess what you said, like it's the best way to learn. Like no one can just sit here on a board, be like, this is what you need to do, and that's it, and not give you any context to it or make you feel something that ties you to what they're trying to explain to you or advise you on. And I think when you do interviews with people or you get their life story, first of all, you learn things about them that you never would have thought from looking at them. And two, things start to make sense and their achievements really like hit you because you're like, wow, look at what you became despite really just not having a good childhood or having to go through really, really hard times or a traumatic event. So I think moving forward, I really hope to get more people on my channel and do these types of conversations. I do want to also do solo videos here and there, but typically it's hard to kind of just talk to the camera. I really benefit from being around people and bouncing off ideas and talking and sparking new thoughts in my mind that I want to talk about. Because really, the only videos I would be talking about is like, you know, something new for that week or like a new theme in my life, which it's not going to happen every 2 days and putting out a video. So, in order to be more consistent, I think I need to do like more videos like this. And I'm really praying that God just throws people at me, just puts people on my path that are wanting to talk about their lives or just like kind of just show the world something about them or something new or like just I don't know. I really enjoy doing things that feel good to me and that spark my creativity, if that makes sense. And talking to people does that. Like, I am very much a people person. As much as I get short-tempered and mad at people, I'm very much someone that loves to talk, socialize. I like to run ideas by people. I like to show them things that I like and see things that they like and share ideas all the time. So I hope that I can continue to do this and get better equipment so that if someone comes over or I meet them and we do it in person, that it can be like a nice official podcast video. But with all that being said, thank you for watching and thank you for keeping up with me. I'm going to try to be more consistent on here. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, or follow me on YouTube and Instagram at Tara with two A's at the end, Mercedes. I also have an occupational therapy Instagram at tara.theot, which you can also follow. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about OT, what OT is, if it's something for you, if you consider becoming an OT or doing something in healthcare. I would love that. I would love nothing more, actually. Please send me a DM. But thanks for listening, and I hope that this resonated with you or it motivated you in some way to get back on your feet and give it your all.